your way, I'll just talk a little bit about the conversation that I had in the hallway. Again, it is in my best judgment that it is in the best interest of any child that may be involved in a circumstance that would involve Child Protective Services for one reason or another, that we do not discuss them personally. And not do anything detrimental to a conflict of interest with what appears in a case and things like that. So I'd ask that I think what properly lies before us here today, or with this task force, and you've sat here with us, you've heard us talk, is that we look for problems that are broader than just the circumstance where you have a personal interest. That this problem exists, and it may exist other places, because I think if we look at policy, issues, we have a better opportunity to not just solve one problem, but multiple problems and protect children and their circumstances specifically. And it's in your best interest, I think, and I think it's in ours. And I think there's a privacy issue, and I think that in all fairness, there can't be any rebuttal or response because of restrictions on DHR to respond to facts involving cases that have child victims. So with those things in mind, I'd appreciate that if you use that as a guideline. But remind me of your name.
My name is Christian Holm.
Christian, and spell your last name for me, Christian.
It's H-O-L-M.
H-O-L-M. And this is your wife?
I'm Danielle Holm.
Danielle Holm. Okay. You have the floor, and I won't hold you strict to a clock, but I may give you a little wave if you go over about 5 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So we just have some questions we would like to ask the task force to think about when writing policies specifically for the removal of children, especially when newborn infants are taken off of breastfeeding mothers and things like that. When there are children being removed, no evidence of alcohol abuse, no evidence of drug use, no evidence of a lack of necessities to live a healthy life, no evidence of abuse, neglect, and just no evidence. We ask for you to look at your policies. And
okay, well, let me clarify something for you. And I know you're just kind of talking. Now, I'm not DHR. Okay, there's only one person here at the table who's actually DHR. So let's just talk in general terms in that vein.
Okay, and you have spoken of ISP services, and
that's right.
We just wanted to make clear that some parents that have their children removed from them are forced to do ISP services that they didn't need before the removal of the child. So that's why when you were speaking of policies and ISP plans and things like that, we just wanted to bring up some families are being forced to do things relating to drugs, and they've never been on drugs before. Just different things like that. So we do have questions that we wanted to ask.
Okay. And we understand that these can't be all answered as of right now, so I'll just ask them.
These are just questions in general. To think about.
General questions, I understand.
Okay. What standard of evidence do I have to have for DHR to accept my complaint and for DHR to act on it and take someone's baby? Is there anything written by DHS describing the level necessary? Does it have to be me actual witnessing it, like as in did I actually 100% see the neglect or abuse committed on the baby?
Or is it an allegation?
Or is it, yes. Does it have to be beyond reasonable doubt, like beyond that level needed for criminal conviction, probably somewhere around 70 to 85% probability for you to act on the neglect or abuse of the child? Does it have to be greater probability than not, like in the standard for a civil suit, that 51% for neglect or abuse of a child?
Can you repeat that for me?
Okay. Does it have to be greater probability than not, like in the standard for a civil suit, that 51% for neglect or abuse of a child?
Okay.
Or will you take an abuse or neglect complaint and act on it and go take the child on my statement that I believe because I heard a rumor about a parent abusing or neglecting a child? Will you take an abuse complaint and go take a baby and or child based on supposition?
Okay.
Will you take a neglect complaint and go take a child based on supposition?
Okay.
Will you take an abuse complaint and go take a child based on gossip?
Okay.
Will you take a neglect complaint and go take a baby and or child based on gossip? Will you take an abuse complaint and go take a baby based on innuendo? Will you take a neglect complaint and go take a baby and or child based on innuendo? Will you take an abuse complaint and go take a baby based on guessing? Will you take a neglect complaint and go take a baby based on guessing? Will you take an abuse complaint and go take a baby based on hearsay? Will you take a neglect complaint and go take a baby based on hearsay? Will you take an abuse or neglect complaint and go take a baby based on if I think they already have committed abuse? Will you take neglect complaint and go take a baby based on if I think they are now abusing the child? What about, will you take an abuse or neglect complaint and go take a baby based on if I think they will only abuse or neglect the child in the future? Isn't spreading even to one other person something that you personally do not know to be true by word committing the tort of slander? Isn't spreading even to one other person something that you personally do not know to be true by print committing the tort or libel? Excuse me.
Sure.
Aren't libel and slander both compensable causes of action in a court of law? And I think that's it for right now.
Well, let me say this to you. I know you're not here without an experience that brings you here.
Yes.
And I'm sincerely sorry for whatever that circumstance is. I appreciate the level of tact that you used in covering that and abiding by the guidelines that we really appreciate.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I've made copious notes, as I think most of the members here have, and I appreciate your input, and I hear you.
Thank you for listening to us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Who's up next? Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me your name?
Terry Foot. Terry with a Y and Foot with an E.
Okay, F-O-O-T-E. Okay, Terry. And I'm not. You heard the information that I gave to the couple that just sat down, and I'd appreciate if you'd abide by those same guidelines.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've lost my notes. Sorry, I haven't. Here we go. Okay. I became a foster parent in 2002 in the Shelby County system.
Yes, ma'am.
And with a few minor hiccups, I cannot say anything but praise for the Shelby County system. It worked and it did what was right.
Great.
And that was in 2002, and I received my daughter. She was 15 years old and had a 3-week-old baby, and he's a strapping boy, almost 6 foot tall now, and headed toward college in a couple of years. And she's a soccer mom now with 2 other kids, and I was at the basketball game last night for the middle child, and they call me Tay-Tay. I'm their grandmother. And it just was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. It changed my life. And they will always be in our lives. They're at every family holiday, every family get-together. They're family. And so I really have a lot of praise and a lot of good experiences from having been a foster parent. And I recognize a lot of the things that you're talking about today, and what a monumental task that you have. And I want to thank every one of you for what you're doing, because it is big, and it's not something that you take lightly. From just watching you today, I can tell you take this very seriously. My questions, or not really questions, there's some issues that I'd like to pose to you that you might think about as you progress.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to look at my notes here because I want to cover them.
Okay.
Well, you discuss all of this, and it's much needed, and I understand the reasons that you're doing it. I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that just like this couple that just spoke with you and their baby, there are other parents and children out there that are suffering while we discuss this. And I'm not taking issue with how DHR has approached it in the past, because I've already shared with you my experience. But I have a dear friend who is in the DHR system now, and I have personally witnessed by going to court with her and talking with her and knowing the family that there are some serious issues that parents are facing now at the hand of DHR that weren't an issue back in 2002.
Let me ask you this, and I don't interrupt you, but let me ask you this, and I don't want to take my time talking away from your time, but talk about for a minute those differences.
Okay.
Are those differences, do you think, things that could be covered in like training issues? Let me make a couple of assumptions. I'm making an assumption that maybe we're talking about DHR employees, maybe caseworkers, and that your very good experience in 2002, which is very different from what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
If there appears to be in that difference, is it things that could be covered in training?
I think probably so, yes, and I think it's kind of system-wide. I have seen judges that made really bad decisions, punitive decisions over things that the parents didn't have. So judges, I've seen a GAL do a couple of things that were very questionable. There's some DHR workers that have overreached their power. And so I've seen it with my friend's case kind of across the board. And just as an example, there was publicity about her case that went national. It went viral. And the judge denied her visitation rights because of the publicity. That's not right. And when I was a foster parent and I was going through my training, they told us every meeting, don't get too attached to these kids because the goal is reunification. And with my friend's experience, it's been nothing but the goal appears to be separating families. And there have been so many egregious things to happen to her that I'm really not qualified. It would take them and their attorney to better share that with you. But I've seen it well enough to know that it's not good and it's not right and it's against the law, some of these things that are happening. So it could be covered in training. I think it could be covered in weeding out some power-hungry employees because some of it just boils down to that. And I hate to be that blunt, but it's there. I've seen it. I think just refocusing DHR and making them aware of the law and that they have to follow the law because the DHR folks in my friend's instant case have violated their constitutional rights.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is problematic to the specific DHR and the specific county you mentioned, or do you think it is beyond that?
I really couldn't answer that from experience, but I believe from what I'm hearing that it's Alabama, well, national, but certainly statewide, that it's happening statewide.
Okay.
There's something that has infiltrated DHR to make them believe that they don't answer to anybody. And I don't know what happened between 2002 and now, because it certainly was not that way in my experience. So some of the things that I think maybe you might address and think about, I don't expect you to recognize them today, but does this committee recognize that there are serious constitutional and civil rights that are being violated? And they are, not just in my friend's case. And do you recognize the egregious overreaches of some of the power-hungry DHR employees that get a little dose of power and they don't have the maturity to handle it and they overreach?
And in all fairness, I think that happens in more than one profession.
I understand that. You're right, it does. But deals with people's lives, and it's so much more critical. But I understand what you're saying, and you're right, it does.
I don't know of a more emotionally charged conversation that can be had than you talk about parents and children.
I know.
And I understand that and appreciate that.
I do too. I do too. From this committee standpoint, from DHR standpoint, and from the parents. The main point that I want to make, I guess I'm a bottom line kind of person, but the bottom line is that everybody seems to have a legitimate voice except the parents, except the families. They're dismissed, summarily dismissed, and put into systems where they don't really have a true voice. And I think that this committee would do well if you would research that a little bit and address those issues, because they're genuine. They're out there.
Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate you two helping us with kind of reining in things. But thank you very, very much for your comments, and also for your positive comments. That's a nice thing to hear. And when you get to focusing on a topic, sometimes you just hear the bad. So I appreciate your positive comments as well.
Just don't lose sight that there's hurting people out there. And thank you, everyone, for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. And who's next? While she's making her way up, let me suggest this to you, and I have suggested this to the gentleman in the hallway. If you would like to put what you discussed here today in a summary and send that so it can become a part of the record, gladly would accept that so that we can include that in the report that you appeared here today. And that did not occur to me until we began to discuss earlier people who had discussed things, and then we don't have a good record of those things, so feel free to do that. I'm not eating into your time. Tell me who you are.
Lisa Chastain. I originally came and was asked to speak to the task force by Ms. Chiswick. I'm sad to see that she has resigned from the group. She's a really strong advocate, and I admire her work. I admire all of your work and appreciate what you've done. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that it's pre when Mr. McCutcheon was first speaker, yes, that's it now, was in charge. The first thing I want to talk about is the ISPs. ISPs are supposed to be agreements. DHR really doesn't use them as agreements. They're basically forcing services, and I don't like to put services in quotes. I actually had a county DHR supervisor, I'm an attorney from Birmingham. We reached an agreement with the parents and DHR, and 5 attorneys were in the room, and when we were talking about a particular service provider, count some service provider, the DHR supervisor shook her head and said, no, we don't use them. They don't tell us anything, and they don't testify like we like. So having services and using services is like a fact-finding expedition, trying to get more evidence against the parents to keep the children away. That goes outside what the services are supposed to be there for. Another thing about the AOC, the guardian ad litem, Adrian asked Robert Drummond, he's an attorney from Foley, he does the guardian ad litem, some of the guardian ad litem training. He came and spoke to the task force. He had a brief idea. He said it would take one signature by the judge to basically make that committee or that oversight under the AOC, remove the contract issues and the contract attorneys, and when a judge needs a guardian ad litem, contacts the AOC in Montgomery, they appoint the guardian ad litem and takes that, if the judge likes you, aspect out. Adds a level of oversight so that when, I'm usually a parent attorney. I really like that role a lot better than, the heartbreaking children. And
it's tough work.
It is very tough work. And so when I see issues, when I see guardian ad litems not following the law, not doing what they're required by statute, I would be able to call the AOC or report it to the AOC, and it's not a bar complaint. It's, it's not that formal. It's just, hey, is this person doing what they're supposed to be doing as required by law? And so, and I'm not going to take Robert's idea or Mr. Drummond's idea and make it my own, but if you could talk to him or get that summary.
Let me tell you my thoughts off the top of my head, and of course I don't speak for the entire task force, but I speak for myself as an individual. I think that, we have voted on and closed this, and I'm interested in what you thought about those recommendations regarding the same. But what you were talking about may be in the alternative, if that doesn't work out, which we could use in the future as we move through these next months.
Right. If it's not a possibility, you were talking about funding and everything, Rick said that, it wouldn't take any extra funding to be able to just change it around and restructure and, point in that direction. And it kind of removes a lot of the bias with the judges appointing the guardian ad litem that they like, or I don't want to say complacency, but I think with the contract system, they get comfortable and they, there's more ex-party communication because they see each other on a daily basis and it's like they're all working in the same office together. So I think that sometimes, they forget their role. So, I think having more people in the pool and that appointment coming from somewhere else that, it's not the judge or not that area, will kind of keep everybody on their toes and remind everybody what they're there for. So, but...
Okay, we have members who want the questions. So, you first? You have a question?
I don't have a question. Just a comment to that. AOC, and Robert Drummond, we all had a meeting about this issue, and I don't believe that they can do that. I don't think that's possible for them to do. Now, as far as how the appointments are made, that may be something to consider, but I don't think that they can. I think we talked about that.
Where I am in this process at this point is just kind of taking in information, and I don't know that we need to dwell on the viability of it at this point. If we get into discussing yours at length, then the other people who've already spoken are going to wonder why we didn't discuss theirs at length. So I'd really rather us avoid doing that.
Sorry, one more thing. I do think that everybody has raised a good point, and I know we've talked about this before as a task force, and that this may come out in our summary or brief summary of what people spoke to us about, but just making sure to include parents' attorneys in the ISP process to where they do have that advocate and make sure their voice is heard.
And see, as far as the code goes and the statutes go, a parent attorney is equal to the guardian ad litem, and I think that the way it's kind of elevated the rights of the guardian ad litem, to access records that it's starting to whittle down. The parent's attorney has the same right, but we don't get that access. We're put at a different level than the guardian ad litems, and we're all working for the same thing. And I know that we advocate for the children, and the guardian ad litem advocates for their best interest, but a lot of times we're on the same page. So I think that the parent attorney we need to get that discovery. We need to have access to records. We need those things that the guardian ad litem seems to now have access to that we're denied. So it was just basically a couple of things to touch on, since I haven't been able to come to the task force meetings lately, and I haven't been able to meet you.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate your comments, and specific to your experience as a parent attorney, that's a different perspective for us, and I appreciate it very much. And with the session coming, I don't know that we'll be able to stick with the first Wednesday. We may have to work around the session schedule a little bit, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And our final speaker today. And you are?
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Sherry Saunders.
Sherry Saunders.
Yes, ma'am. It's GRRIESAUNDERS. The reason why I am here today and that I am sitting with these folks beside me, I am a state employee. I'm not paid to be here. I'm not paid to do any of the work that I do outside of the scope of my job working for the state. The reason why I am here is for the last 25 years I have spent my life growing my career towards to become a civil rights leader. In this state, I have already performed work with the EEOC and the federal government as a secret whistleblower witness in a case back in 2003 through 2006. Currently, I am enrolled with a case in Huntsville Hospital as a former employee that I will become a whistleblower in that case. So basically what I have become through my selfless work with a committee to protect the homeless. It is a nonprofit based out of Birmingham. Rodney Cole is the executive director. I'm the director of the Huntsville office. We do not have a building. I'm non-funded, and we have no funds coming into our office. What we do have is
the
committee to protect the homeless out of Huntsville. I'm the director of the Huntsville office. Rodney Cole out of Birmingham is the executive director of this nonprofit that has been in Birmingham for 10 years. What we do in our work is we provide lawyers, we provide investigators to people who have complaints. And obviously our name as Committee to Protect the Homeless it may sound like we're only there for the homeless, but that is not the case. I would like to let this committee know that what we do is we reach out and accept cases from people who cannot afford personal attorneys or afford an investigator to assist them in their complaints that they have against the system. And in this case, I stand before you as 25 years as personal in my work as an investigator, and the fact that I have already been used by the federal government for my investigative abilities. I stand before this committee today and explain to you what we have is a situation in this state where not only an overreaching of certain workers, we have a situation where I am making an allegation standing before you right now that I certainly believe that we have an institution of abducting children for revenue and creation of revenue purposes. We have an opportunity before us today, moving forward with your task force, that you can take the examples that you have read about and maybe not know all of the story or maybe think that there's not more to it. But I stand before you as someone I am willingly telling you I'm already being retaliated against and could lose my job for this right here. I work for the state of Alabama. No one has paid me to investigate these cases. I am looking to open a case in 67 counties that proves that there is corruption within the DHR system where we are kidnapping children for purposes of creating revenue so that we can build more offices, we can hire more people. Our judges are complacent and are a part of this system. If they refuse to look at the facts, if they refuse to answer questions to these families that have now lost their children, that have no recourse of getting them back. So the only purpose that I can see for myself as a civil rights leader in the state of Alabama at this point is to open a case in 67 counties where I can prove the malfeasances that are happening in front of us so that you in this fine committee can use that information. If I was to give you one suggestion, I would suggest this. We need a citizens review board that can overstep and overbound any of these decisions that are made. When you take all of the decision-making ability is on your side of the table, and these parents that are left with nothing, no recourse, and if they do not have an attorney to help represent them or a civil rights leader willing to lose her job again for another opportunity to become a whistleblower, then they are left with no one to protect them. So I say to you once more, a citizens review board that we can use as an oversight committee that is elected non-government officials, non-lawyers. In fact, we don't probably need to elect anybody except to find good people that will appoint themselves to this because they're not looking for a paycheck. I am not looking for a paycheck. I just met these folks a month ago. But I will let you know that as my work through this director as a nonprofit in 25 years where people come and reach out to me because of my expertise and skills, I am concerned that anything anything and anybody can have their child ripped from them, and they will have no chance or possibility of getting that child back for years, because the creation of the revenue that's taken from day one is the reason why DHR at this point, I believe, is after these children. It has long gone that we care about their rights and that we care about their health. If we care about the health of children, we would want to reunite them with family or family members that can help explain to them maybe what happened or be there for them, instead of parents whose sole purpose is to get a check. They may or may not care for that child. And at this point, I don't care. It is not about the foster parents. It is about the system that is creating revenue for other DHR workers. It is about the fact that we do not have independent investigators verifying the information that a DHR worker will use as gold in front of a courtroom. A judge will accept their testimony, and if you will permit me to say it, in most of my investigations, as I've only found one, that the parent lied to me, and I was able to prove that there was no reason for me to be there. Ma'am, in every instance, I'm looking to file a civil rights complaint because of the lying and the manipulations that took place. So I do not want to lose my job that took me many years to get, working for the state of Alabama, by becoming another whistleblower again for families that's not me, so that I can lose my job exposing the system. But I say to you, as I stand before you, I will lose my job again, as I have lost my job before, as a federal whistleblower. I will do it again. Because this committee may not be the committee that comes after my kids, but I will let you know, ma'am, that my kids have already been attempted to come after because of my testimony against Huntsville Hospital and the illegal biological waste dumping they were doing in the city landfill. So they fired me, which is great. I didn't like that job anymore anyhow. But I stand before you as a single woman who has chosen in her life to become a civil rights leader. I have put myself in this place, and I assure you that I have spent 20 years with no help. This is not a job that everybody wants to aspire to. Me begging for my help, ma'am, that I know as one person I cannot give. So I ask this committee to give these parents who have had their children ripped from them with literally no reason except but for the creation of revenue, that we move forward with a citizens review board or some instance that these parents can have some recourse to come back for their children. Because right now I am telling these parents the only recourse I have is to put you on my radio show, write a story about you, and let me file your civil rights complaint, and for no money, as I have done everything out of pocket. I will investigate your claims, and we will start putting these CPS and DHR workers who have no protection when they're lying on the stand. We will start suing them because we cannot get any other recourse. We cannot get any respect in this state. So I am left as a civil rights leader to accept their complaints and find a way to help these people, because your task is to be that person. And if you cannot put this into place where these parents can have some protection, then he comes to a civil rights leader who made it her life's mission to fight the fights and nobody else would.
I appreciate your passion. Very obvious that you feel very strongly how you do, and that you make some personal sacrifices to do that. Your comments are so noted, and I appreciate you coming here today and staying for the length of time that you did. Sure, you had to take off from work to be here today. Yeah, so I understand that, and I appreciate it very much. But thank you for your comments.
If I could, for one thing, I heard everybody was concerned about how we're going to pay for this. Well, I offer my services as an independent investigator. At any moment, if y'all was to ask, could we have some independent investigator willing to step forth or sit in a committee, which I have sat in many, that we could use your information or your expertise? And why are you here, Sherry Saunders? I'm telling you why I'm here. Because my phone is ringing from parents that I cannot help. So I would like for my phone to stop ringing. And you don't get that by turning it off. You get that by fixing the problem. So I cannot make it to a civil rights leader unless I can help these people with their civil rights complaints. So I was able to help with mine, and I'm going to help with theirs. But I ask you, please, if you need somebody who will do it for free because you ain't got the dollar, I'm in Morgan County. If you can just give me a car ride down here in Montgomery any day of the week, hour, it does not matter. I volunteer my skills. I will come and testify before any committee you ask. I will offer you any information that you want.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for
the
coming down
opportunity to
here.
speak for this committee, and thank you for your good work.
Absolutely. Thank you. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is our longest meeting on record. We're adjourned. See you on the 1st. Thank you.